Hello, YouTubers. This is Joe Cruiser here on Tuesday, May 20th, 2014 at around 15:30 in the afternoon Eastern Daylight Time. And first off, I would like to start with a hearty happy birthday to my Dill. That's my daughter-in-law, she's my Dill, daughter-in-law. I'm her Dill, dad-in-law. And she's turned 40 today. And one of the great things about this was that her sister organized a sort of a 40-day countdown to this event by getting people to send her cards and, extended emails and so forth from the 40 days previous to today until the event here. So God bless you there, my Dill, and you're a good soul. And I'm delighted you're married to my son and the mother of my grandchild. So having said that, from the sublime to the ridiculous, as is often the case on some of these videos, I got thinking about trying to take a dump, when you're swimming or underwater, or well, when you're in the water, when you're like in a lake or the ocean or whatever. And I haven't had to do that very often, fortunately. But the first time happened when we had gone tent camping down to Lake Cumberland. My family, with my aunt and uncle, had gone tent camping down to Lake Cumberland, Kentucky, when I was 9. So that puts it around the summer of 1961, and that trip was notable for 3 things. One, I'll tell you the cleaner of the 3 right now. Well, no, I'll tell you one of the horrible things is that was the first time I ever saw separate colored and white drinking fountains outside a gas station. You had 2 drinking fountains on a gas station outside wall, and one of them said colored and the other one said white. And that just seemed to me to be very, 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 very odd and wrong. As indeed it is and was. And I'm assuming that hasn't. Well, I've been in the South many times since then, and that seems to have gone away. You don't know what's going on in people's hearts, but at least overtly. And then the other thing was we went to Mammoth Cave. That was a lot of fun. On the way home, we stopped at Mammoth Cave, and we went. Took the tour through the caverns. Well, the shorter tour through the caverns, but it was very interesting to go down underground like that. And then the third thing it was notable for is this. Now, it seems that the outhouses were, pretty afar off. Well, for a guy, that's no problem when you got to take a leak. You just take a leak. You just go off somewhere and take a leak. And actually, for my aunt, who had grown up with my dad, when they were on vacation, a lot of times the women would just take a leak outside too. In fact, there's this photograph of my aunt and my dad's sister-in-law squatting in a ditch up there in northern, in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, outside Hessel, Michigan, taking a leak in a ditch. That's now in the possession of my niece. Boy, I wish I had a copy of that. But I don't. So my sister and I, who at the time, well, she's 8 years old, so she was 17. She was in her last year in high school. She was going to be a senior the following year. And that following fall. And So we're swimming in Lake Cumberland, and and the place where we were camping is, you have this, Lake Cumberland's very deep. You know, you know, you go off the shore and you go in about maybe 2 or 3 feet, and then there's like these 60, 70, 80-foot drops. Well, I never really swum a lot in water over my head, but since I was so close to the shore, it didn't really bother me that much. But it occurred to me that, given that the outhouses were almost, better part of a half mile away, and I need to take a dump, this might be a good place to do it. Well, so I sort of squiggled out of my little swimming attire, and it turns out it's harder to do than you think. Well, it was for me then. I've since talked to other guys that have basically confirmed that experience. But eventually the deed was done. Now, this must have been one that wasn't full of fat, so it didn't float up to the surface. It must have sunk down to the bottom of the lake. Now, round 2. Now, in 1971, my best friend and I went over to Europe. We spent a month in England. We sort of stayed, sometimes we stayed with his folks, sometimes we slept outside rough, that sort of thing. And traveled around Great Britain. We started, we sort of did a circuit. We went up to Scotland and, the whole bit. And then the following month we went down into the continent proper, as they used to call it then. And, we had a Euro pass, but, what we'd do is we'd travel by Euro, but then we'd walk out, generally we'd walk outside of any town we stopped in if we needed to, sleep the night, we'd sleep outside. Now, this was an amazing summer. We only got rained on about 2 times and maybe sprinkled on 1 other time. The entire 2 months we were there. And, that doesn't mean there wasn't any rain in Europe that summer. It just means that we weren't in the parts of Europe where it was raining at the time we were there. And once we got into, Europe, essentially what we were eating was bread and cheese. Well, which is, the staff of life. Bread, cheese, and beer, and a vitamin C tablet every now and again, and you can carry right on. Tends to stop you up sometimes, but you could live on that. When they say bread is the staff of life, it is the staff of life. I suppose if you're from Asia, you'd say rice is the staff of life, and that is too, assuming it hasn't been polished, so there's no B vitamins in it. So, time went by, as it does, and we got down to south, the very extreme southwest part of France. And we were 5 miles north of the Spanish border in this really neat little town called Cerbère. I doubt it's neat and little now, but at that time it was very, very neat and little. And we got off the train and we walked up this mountainside, hillside, steep hillside, towards Spain, and excuse me, and we were going to, put out our ground sheet and our blankets and, sleep there that night. And the thing that impressed me about where we were was that, there's an ant running around my computer. Go away. The thing that impressed me where we were, that there was a sign in both French and Spanish that basically said, "Beware the poisonous serpents." Well, that was a comforting thought as we tried to get some sleep up there in the outdoors. And but all went well. Nobody was bitten. Nobody was killed. And so the next morning we walked back down to Cerbère, And indeed, we had some bread and cheese, or bought some bread and cheese. I think we generally saved that till either noonday or, to consume it till noonday or the evening. But meanwhile, here's the Mediterranean Sea. You just go, you can walk right out into it and swim in it. And indeed, a number of people were already doing that at around, 8, 9 in the morning, 10 in the morning. And so my friend and I, went out, we went swimming, and it was great. I mean, the only problem was that occasionally you'd have a turd float by you from the sewage outlet just a few hundred yards up the way, but you could sort of, bat out of the way with your hands. And so, speaking of turds, my buddy said to me, he says, I haven't taken a shit since we've come over to France. And I said, oh, well, I was well aware of that. I mean, I'd kind of puzzled about that. Now, see, that had, fortunately, that hadn't been I had not had that problem because, first of all, the great thing about, a lot of cities in Europe is, in contrast to the United States, and I don't know whether that's the case now, but at that time, in 1971, there were public cans all over the place. And so you just go in and do what you have to do. So I said, well, just take a shit in the Mediterranean. He said, yeah, okay. So he shimmied out of his pants. And he said, hold these. I said, yeah. So I sort of paddle off, exercising a little discretion. I sort of paddled off to give him some privacy. And time went by, and time went by, and time went by, and time went by. Nothing happened. So he finally gave up. So that was that. So, 3 days later, this was about 7 days on, so 3 days later we're in Rome. Well, I could tell you about that train ride down to Rome, but that's another story. I'll have to write that down. Italian military guys, body blocking nuns trying to get on the train, standing up all night, people sweating like mad. Well, it's Europe, people sweat, they stink. Well, here's an idea, guys. Let's get used to that. Sometimes people just stink. So we're in Rome, and we find a place to stay, and we're actually going to stay indoors in Rome. And excuse me. So we fell in with a guy who was from Texas, sort of our age, doing the same thing we're doing. And he said, well, let's rent a place together because, room together because, it'll be a lot cheaper and we can split the cost. And that's fine. So, and this was what we rented for it's like dirt cheap. I can't remember the equivalent price, but it's dirt cheap. Listen, I'm a tightwad. So if I thought it was a good deal, it was a good deal. And, so we're up there, it's like these huge high ceilings. It's got like 3 rooms, My buddy and I had our room. This guy had his own room. There was a central room. And it was really, this was amazing. And so this guy went off to see, I'll tell you one little bit of digression here from the excretory theme of this video. This Texas guy went off to see the papal blessing I think it was on a Wednesday, and he was not he was, as my son would say, a prop, and but he wanted to see St. Peter's and the Vatican and that sort of thing, and indeed my buddy and I went over there the next day or later that day and saw it. And, well, as much as you can see in just, 6 hours. Excuse me. So he comes back that night, and we were comparing experiences. And he said, "Well, I got there just as the Pope was giving this kind of thing off the balcony." And I'm going to quote this, and this may be offensive to some of my viewers who are not Prots. He said, direct quote, "Them Catholics just hauled ass like deer to get up close to that Pope." And that always stuck with me. Yeah. So, later that very late afternoon, after we got done with our various peregrinations and had some more bread and cheese, my buddy finally was, fessing up to me that this is just not working. I mean, he says, "I've got to take a shit." And I said, "Well, can I help you? I mean, I don't know what to do, And he says, "Can you come in here and just sort of really mash on my belly while I try?" Well, by golly, when I laid my hand on his abdomen, you could feel this large accumulation, and with his sort of, it's sort of like it's like Lamar's breathing. Breathe, relax, let me just shove this down, in your pelvis and try to get this out. Then there was finally great success. Took about 4 or 5 flushes, but there was great success. And so all was well. And after that, the rest of the trip, that wasn't a problem for him the rest of the trip. But see, by that time, we'd gotten up into sort of the Germanic countries, and, you have a little fatty meat in you. You get, salami and this, that, and the other. And so you get some fatty meat in you, and that just kind of helps things kind of slide out. Greases the skids, smooths the path. Well, what an odd thing to talk about on this fine day out on the back deck. Well, Paul's off work today, and he's taking a nap right now, so God bless everybody, and bye-bye, YouTubers.